what we're going to try and talk you through now, there's 2 sessions that we're going to walk through. First of all, Barry and Kate are going to talk about what makes webinars win for their businesses. So that should really help everybody in the room. And then the second part is Paul from BrightTALK is going to talk about what the future looks like, because the webinar has been with us since the late 80s. If you don't know, it's a combination of web seminar, abbreviated to webinar, and it's actually a word that is associated with an audio and PowerPoint presentation. Now, we all know that creating content is hard, and creating an audio PowerPoint presentation is really, really hard, especially for small marketing teams. But there are tools now that help you create quick, easy, highly engaging, and quite authentic content. And we're going to talk about some of those, sort of the future of webcasting towards the end. But I really want to pick into these 2 guys' brains. So Barry, just I'll give you the microphone. Just introduce yourself to the group, who you work for, and a bit of your career.
Okay. Hey everybody, I'm Barry Spielman, VP Marketing at Sixgill. Sixgill is a cyber threat intelligence company in Netanya. I've been there for about the last 3 years. 25 years in high tech, different companies. Before that was in the Army, IDF, Lieutenant Colonel in Reserves. Made Aliyah from the United States back in the late 80s. What else? That's good enough for now?
If that's fine. Kate, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, I'm Kate Chopper. I'm Director of Demand Generation at Kryon. Kryon is a company that does robotic process automation. Hot topic right now. Prior to that, the majority of my career I've done in cybersecurity, cybersecurity marketing. I lived here for 25 years and moved back to the UK about 4 years ago. So now work with a sort of remote team, sort of global team, which has its own challenges as well.
Excellent.
Yep.
Right. Thank you very much, Kate. Thanks, Barry. By the way, we will share all the slides tonight, so not sure that's working. You don't take photographs. We'll share everything that you'll see tonight. And also, there is on your chair. Please take one. Every year we do a benchmarks report that is from the 100,000 plus webinars and videos on our platform. So everything that you need to know to be a top content and demand marketer is in that book. It's a great read. I'll also send you the ebook version by email tomorrow. But Barry, I'll start with you. Just tell everybody why you started running webinars. And I know you've done them throughout your career, but why was it important for your business?
Okay, so in previous companies before Sixgill, we'd been doing webinars, different kinds of platforms that didn't exactly give the same thing. Maybe folks have worked with Microsoft Skype for Business. So it's a good platform, but it doesn't have a lot of the things that BrightTALK did. But it didn't matter because we didn't have Skype for Business anyway at Sixgill. I was very keen on adding webinars to our portfolio of marketing tools because my experience has been that it's an excellent way to, first of all, to show thought leadership. Number 2, to really, you get a combination of brand awareness and lead generation in one. Because on the one hand, you're getting your name out to a wide audience. At the same time, anyone who registers as a lead that goes into your system that you'll nurture and, hopefully it'll go further than that. I guess, I don't know if you want to ask it in a follow-up question about what we did with it, but certainly it was an easy sell internally to kick it off. You do need the resources to be able to pull it off. Amit was talking about the amount of people you need. We didn't go that much.
So you're a small marketing team, and
Yeah.
you manage to publish regular content. How do you do that?
So basically, I'm at this point still a one-man show, work with a lot of outsourced companies, 2 of which are here tonight, and 2 of my favorite, Marketing Envy and BrightTALK. Both of them do great jobs, so in one shot, you both guys get compliments. But basically, I'm still a one-man show at this point with the outsourced. But that's okay. I mean, you certainly can get away with it, but you still need cooperation from people inside. A threat intelligence company like ours has the advantage of having an intelligence team. So we have some very cool content that's based on intelligence analysts doing reports on things that are interesting. And so the trick is to get them on board to be doing it as often as we wanted them to do it. And we had a run of 9 webinars in a row, which is very hard to maintain. We took a break. We're back at it again. We're back to 3 in a row. But I mean, the idea is to have the people who can do the content and can give the webinar. And we're lucky that we have a company that has that ability.
Okay, Barry, thanks. Now, Kate, so I think Kate was my first Israeli client when you were at Tufin. Tufin started running webinars on BrightTALK 6-7 years ago.
I think it's six,
So
7 years.
just explain, I mean, I can't even remember how we met, but why did you start running webinars then, and why now you've gone to Kryon? Are they such an important part of your content mix?
I think at the beginning, I think we were where you were. We were using other platforms to do webinars, but what we didn't have was any sort of brand loyalty. So when we first started using BrightTALK, we would have, you publish a piece of content and it's going to stay there, right? And the next time you publish a piece of content, that's there. But anybody that goes then into your channel will see other pieces of content. And anytime we have a new piece, like Amit was saying before, an invite's automatically going to go out. So it's almost as if, we've built like it's like a YouTube channel, as it were. And so people will come back continuously to the content. And we had huge success doing that at Tufin. And we then have been with Kryon for a year. And that's now, but the webinar program is now a major part of our lead generation activity. And I just want to add something that, lead generation is kind of the easy bit, and we can all get the leads in, and the question is how many of those leads or what are they going to do within the funnel once you've got them in. So we're really looking at, the quality of what's coming in, how that fits into our wider strategy, what the conversion rates are within the webinars as a channel and as part of, multi-touch activities. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I mean, it's quite interesting. We speak to literally thousands of marketers every year, and I don't think anybody disagrees with the comment that you need to create high-quality, engaging content. If anybody disagrees with that, then let's have a conversation, because I do believe that content is king, but at the same time, it can be hard work, and we're going to try and explore that in a moment. Let me just show you some stats. Now, you probably would expect a webinar provider to have webinars at the top of its table, but basically we survey a large number of the viewers on BrightTALK, and these are buyers, these are people going through buying decisions, and they tell us that the content format they prefer is a webinar, because it's got a lot of detail in it, it's got a lot of information, it helps make purchasing decisions. So we're quite proud of that. What you will see at the bottom is when you look at this league table, things like product demos, they're not that interested in early on. That top of the funnel stuff, help me solve a problem, give me some detail in a webinar, is very, very important. So it's good that you've both got successful programs. One of the other things as well, which is quite interesting, and I really like this, people often say, do people really watch webinars? Well, they do. We will all have a CIO or a CTO in our business. I guarantee those people in your companies, in those jobs, are binge watching webinars, because they have to. They have to make sure our businesses are protected, we've got the right tech stacks. And as it's seen there, I think the stat is something like 70-something% of business professionals watch 2 hours or more of rich media content. That's pretty incredible. And I think maybe as marketers, we perhaps don't watch the amount of content that maybe some of our sort of tech colleagues do. So that's quite reassuring. And the other thing as well is that webinars and videos are growing strong. There are more and more being published. I remember when we were talking to companies 7-8 years ago, we were trying to convince people that they need to do webinars. Now we don't actually need to do that. We just need to help people find the time, get the resource to do it. Okay, so Kate, I'll come to you if I can. How do you get started on this? I mean, you need to engage your CMO, your CEO. I mean, if somebody's not running a webinar program now, what advice can you give them to build advocacy within the business?
I think it would probably be a case of you've got to prove your case in order to get the buy-in. So what we've done at Kryon is, we had a really robust webinar plan, and we had, for us, it's tied into, a higher sort of level of campaign strategy, and then underneath that we've got webinars, we've got events, we've got other sort of paid lead gen activity, And we really started off sort of small, and were able to show the results of what we brought in, or the names of the companies and the job titles of what we brought in. We did a really tight follow-up with our BDR team to make sure that those were being picked up. And then we look at, how many of our opportunities were actually touched, as it were, a video along their sort of journey. And we can consistently see that webinars are a piece of content that people are using.
Okay, and just before Barry answers, I'm going to tease out a little bit later that question about when do you pass to sales. Somebody's viewed my content. When do I ring them? Do I ring them now, tomorrow? Do I nurture them? And we'll explore that in a minute, because that really is some of the secret sauce, as they say. So, Barry, just sort of, how did you build advocacy in the business? And you've actually got an interesting story, because Sixgill is not a big company, and yet you managed to produce essentially a webinar a month, but you do that by involving pretty much your whole team.
Well, that party ended in May. We had a run.
You've had the summer off.
9 in a row. Nationals did win 8 in a row before they lost. So 9 in a row, but we're back at it again. So it's my goal and it's my plan that we do one a month. But to do that, you really do need to get buy-in. So what we've done is I sit with our VP Intelligence and his team to basically up front build out the webinars for the next few months. We have sort of a rotation going, so it's not falling on one guy to do it all the time. So it basically once every 4 months, 5 months, the same person has to give another webinar, which is legitimate twice a year to do a webinar. So that's how we built it out. And I think we're back in the loop again because whatever the issues were that we couldn't continue. And I got to tell you, it's very hard. It is very hard to get people to buy in at that level. But you know what? You don't have to do it every month. You can do it every second month. The point is to be consistent, because what we were watching was a lot of the people who are coming to our webinars will come back again. They like the content. They like the subjects.
And you actually made it quite competitive, because I remember seeing your customer success director, who was very proud that he'd had the biggest audience on a Sixgill webinar. So to create that kind of excitement in your business, well done. It's good stuff.
No, he was happy, but he's been passed, so
okay.
He gets a chance again.
And then one of the key secrets on webinars, and Paul will talk about a new tool that will help all content producers later, but how do you plan your editorial calendar, particularly when you're in a threat business like yourself? How do you know what to publish, when to publish? How do you react to sort of world events and stuff like that?
I'm not sure that what we're doing, we're going to bring it to that level of tie-in. I mean, there's other things we're doing. A lot of it's with Marketing Envy and Josh here. We're doing that a little bit more tied into these events. But when we do webinars, we're kind of planning them out a little bit further out. And stuff that's happening in cyber threat, and we're focused on the deep and the dark web. That's what Sixgill does. We're not going into that here, but it's deep and dark web threat intelligence, okay? So there's a lot of things that are happening that are relevant a month ago or are going to be relevant 3 months from now. So if we did a webinar on looking at the first half of the year in terms of something like 23 million credit cards were stolen, this became a webinar, which became a blog, which Amit was saying before, which became a lot of other material that we're putting out. We did also a white paper on it. It's all part of the same thing. But I'm not sure that we're going to go to that level of tie into events when we're planning this stuff. I'm not sure we're in a position to do that.
And it's difficult in the business you're in as well. So
in our business, I think it is.
Yeah. Kate, what about yourself? How do you plan your calendar and how do you know what to publish and when to publish it?
So we do, there's the theory and then there's what actually happens. So when we're building out the plan, we've got different people within the business giving us input. We've got Leora here in the audience who's responsible for field marketing and events. So we're always looking to see what content or speaking opportunities or presentations we've prepared already for events, and we're using those as webinars. So we've already got the content created. We look at where we've got gaps between events and content that's coming in. So we're going to be looking at what the BDR's activity is. So we know there's a lot more activity on the sales side if they're dealing with inbound leads from events. So we would then put webinars, sort of space those out. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we, customers is another. It's really, really hard for us to get customer to join a webinar, and it takes us months to make that happen. But when it happens, the results are really outstanding, and that was our sort of, best performing. And it wasn't even a webinar that we recorded on, BrightTALk. It was a webinar that we'd paid another company to do with a customer. We'd done all the legwork, we had lead gen coming in from there. We then took that recording, put it on BrightTALk as if it were a new sort of live webinar, and got really fantastic results. So,
and Kate, we've known each other a long time, but you don't have to apologise every time you use another vendor. It's okay. Let me just show you again something that's in that report that's on your desk. This is what professionals want to hear. They want tips, tricks, best practices. They want that kind of information. They want industry trends and predictions. They want your subject experts. What they don't want is product reviews, product training, product demos. That's bottom of the funnel. So really think about, the how-tos, the experts that you can get. And as I said, I'm teasing Paul's bit next, but there is a tool now that we've just released that helps you really understand what and when and why you should be publishing. But when you're producing webinars, particularly those at the top of the funnel, don't get sucked into talking too much about yourself. It's fine to introduce yourself as a solution to the problem, but it's important to map out the problem and explain what the top tips are. I've put that slide up a bit early because I wanted to ask you the question first, but I'll ask you the question while it's up. So what the survey tells us when we ask our audience is the factors that influence when they register or why they register for a webinar is very much the abstract, the description, the webinar title. There is so much influence in what they see in their inbox or the first line they see when they click on a link. So do you want to just talk a little bit more? In fact, I've got an example of yours in a moment, but Kate, just sort of talk about the factors that you see that influence.
You've got them here, but I think from our experience, it has always been, we have a constant battle of, the product team wanting to do the product demo and wanting to show what we've really got, and it's a constant, reminder of, we're actually trying to be, thought leaders, and we don't really need to talk about the product because that will happen, once we offer content to download. But we always find that the topics that give people value, that's what people want. They're going to be wasting, did I say wasting? 45 minutes of their time, or, using that 45 minutes. They need to have value and to receive that value from the time that they've spent. So I think to keep away from the sell, like you were saying, and to having that title and description so people are really clear about what to expect and what they're going to get, and to make sure it's of value to them, not to you as a business.
Barry?
Yeah, I would just say that we, from the beginning, made a decision that it was only going to be sort of an educational thought leadership type of a thing, because we have the content. You bring through the back door, of course. You're showing what you want to show by showing how it comes up on our platform. So we're going to use examples from our platform to illustrate the point, but the subject isn't about our solution. And we actually, what's the word? We explain it, or we announce it. We call it an educational webinar series. Of course, always invite them if you're interested. Get in touch. We'll show you a demo. But it's really not the focus of it.
Sure. Okay. Again, I'm just going to quickly pull out some data from the book. This is pretty much similar when you run events like tonight as well, is that most of your attendees come in the final week of promotion. 42% of your attendees are likely to come right before the webinar when you apply. Bizarrely enough, when you look at best days to promote, Tuesday is a great day to promote. I know that Israel has a different working week, but what we're seeing in the UK and the US is that Sunday has become a good day to promote, because a lot of business professionals now on a Sunday night have a glass of wine, have their dinner, and just clear their diary up, and if there's an invitation that they see relevant, they start to plan their week. So a lot of clients are telling us in the UK and the US that they're actually not afraid to promote on a Sunday now, when in the past people thought, well, you're invading somebody's private space, and we've seen a bit of a spike in that. So whether more people are setting their week up on a Sunday night with a glass of wine, but it's an interesting stat. So, okay. Right, so we've got this content, you've created this content, you've built advocacy in your business. obviously you put it on BrightTALK, but how else do you distribute? How else do you get views to that content, but more importantly, the right people? So, Barry, start with you. Oh, you got the mic.
Okay, so we do a few things together. We'll put up on our website, we'll have a pop-up on the website, so anyone who's going to visit the website, you can't miss the pop-up for the registration. By the way, we'll store on our websites also all of the previous webinars too, so that's one of the things that you do with BrightTALK. It's always on demand, so you could do that. We also run a social media campaign. We'll also do a LinkedIn paid advertisement campaign to bring links to bring it back to the registration. And I'd send out mailers. I'll send out two. I'll send out one I'd say 3 weeks in advance, and then I'll send out another one as a reminder about a few days in advance. And you can track very easily. One of the nice things that we've done, and again, it connects the two companies that are here, is the integration between BrightTALK and HubSpot. So because it's connected to HubSpot, which we implemented in the last few months with the help of the folks from Marketing Envy, we are able to see where the people are coming from, if they've done other things on our website, and the scoring and all that other stuff that goes together with marketing automation. So that's also, I think, a very important part of it.
Okay, and I'm just going to pull an example actually, because I got an email from Barry yesterday, and which I was told was created by Marketing Envy. But you were linking a topical world piece of news to your content, and upcoming webinar tomorrow, November the 4th, next week. But basically, ISIS are scraping the dark web. They're doing some very sinister things, and you were linking it to the death of the ISIS leader. And,
no.
Oh, you weren't. That's how I read it.
No, it's great. But you see, but that's exactly the point. This webinar was done, and planned to come out now several weeks ago. We didn't know that they kill off.
So you've been lucky with the timing.
But it's perfect timing. But this is actually part of a newsletter that goes out once a month in order to promote the webinar and other things. You cut off the other things, but there's other things there too, like blogs and threat reports and other things. But this is to promote the webinar, and another one of these will go out, I guess, November 1st or something like that, in order to remind folks to join.
So I thought that was all good planning by you, Barry, including the... Kate, so...
So we're using our webinars as part of our top-of-the-funnel lead gen, but we're also using them as part of the BDR follow-up activity. So they can have a conversation with somebody and then send on a link to a relevant webinar to continue that conversation. We're using them on our website, blog posts. We also do use them for paid advertising on LinkedIn, which is a good channel for us, as is Facebook, which never fails to surprise me. But Facebook also, works for us. That's when, I think that's kind of like the thing you're saying about Sunday night.
Yeah.
It's when you get in front of people that you've got no competition. You are sort of top of mind because they're actually on Facebook doing something else, and here's your ad. And that's actually worked really well for us, and those convert really well down the funnel. Yes, it surprises me every time. Yeah.
Okay, keep the microphone if you can. I'm going to ask you about on-demand content. So this always-on approach that we hear a lot about. So
yeah, so we're really sort of moving towards the sort of always-on approach, where we're constantly uploading content, whether it's webinars or whether it's videos or whether it's something else that we can use that platform for. So we're also constantly being found and by organic searches. And as we're sort of trying to increase the number of webinars that we're doing, the idea is really to sort of continuously be in front of these people. And the other thing that we do is worth mentioning is we're all over our competitors' BrightTALK channels. And we know what they're doing, we know who's there, we know what topics they're talking about. And for us, that's a really good way to do lead gen.
Okay, Barry.
Just a thing to add to that, because I think it's important to understand. At the beginning, you asked me a question. In the past, we used different platforms. One of the advantages of BrightTALK, for example, is not just that it's everything is on demand and you can upload all the stuff that you're talking about. We do it too, but there's also the built-in communities that are part of BrightTALK, which I don't think exist with other types of just webinar platforms. That's also important because you have a built-in audience that's there, and you can then target the type of audience you want based on keywords and all that. That's technical, but that's there. And the other thing that we do that hasn't been mentioned, but it's important, that when you put up a webinar, you can also put up all sorts of attachments, right? So that particular webinar has attachments that you could put a white paper, you could put a link to, register, request a demo, whatever it is. You have the ability to do that. And so when people go to the webinar, they will see that stuff. Do they, flock to the masses to download it?
And if you get somebody from one of your target accounts staying for 45 minutes, downloading an attachment, maybe the slides, requesting a free trial.
You know that guy's somebody who's worth reaching out to.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can I just add one thing to that is that we also use, there are webinars that we do live and there are webinars that we do as if they're live. So we've already recorded them just to fit into people's schedules and, just life and things. So we use that feature a lot. So we've got pre-recorded webinars that we advertise as live. So even if we've done that, for one region, 2 months later, we might do that same webinar, but for a different target audience. And we can just keep using that content.
And that's great if you're in a global role, because essentially you as a marketer can run a webinar while you're in bed, and I'll tell you how to do that later, but it's a great tool. But look at this. So I can't believe it when marketers produce content and then take it down straight away. Yes, it's great having a live audience, and live is the absolute lifeblood of our platform. But look at, you will continue to be getting on-demand leads to your content even 100 days afterwards. So if your content's still relevant, still fresh, still tagged well, comes up in searches, you can still get leads off it 6, 9, 12 months after it's appeared. But look how much, sort of 50% of on-demand happens in the first 10 days. So if you haven't got that content somewhere easily accessible, you could be missing out on that. We're going to have to move on because time is catching up on us. I've actually got probably one final question, and we'll just talk about embedding content. Now, Barry, I know you do this, so this is embedding content on your website. So you're running your webinars on BrightTALK, but you're embedding it on your website. Why do you do that? What benefits does it give you?
Well, again, one of the advantages of this particular platform is that it's always there. So just because you've done the webinar, it's not over. So you want to leverage it. So I want to leverage it a lot of ways. So obviously I want to promote it. So on the website I'm promoting it, and there's sections that are specific to get to the registration link. But there's also a section on our website which is for the previous webinars. So all of them, it's all there. So anyone comes in, you can go and watch basically any webinar, but the link basically isn't going to us. It's taken back to the BrightTALK platform where it's on demand. So that, if that's what you're referring to?
Essentially, yeah, because as a marketer, you want people to spend time on your website. So if they're watching a webinar, you don't necessarily want them watching it on a landing page or even on BrightTALK.com.
But it's also useful in the sense, I mean, maybe not to the masses, but a lot of times that, we gave a demo to somebody, or we had a conversation with a potential customer, and he was interested, or she was interested in something that we were talking about, that we have good material, whether it's a white paper or the webinar. So you just send them the link to the existing webinar and to go in there and get it. I did like Amit's idea about the webinar turning into an ebook. We'll take that offline, right?
Okay. And I know it's Symantec and Symantec aren't here, but that's a great example of how your webinar can be embedded on your website. So it looks really cool. It's good for marketers. So Kate, anything to add? Because I have a final question for you, actually. In fact, let's move to that, because this is the webcast you talk about where you got your customer on it. It was a big hotel group, so you did well to get that. But what I like about this webinar, 5 questions on automated process. So when you look at some of the best performing content, it actually delivers what it says in the title. And I'll go back to the title before. So 5 questions. So everybody that turns up to that webinar knows they're going to have 5 solutions, 5 answers. Why do you use tactics like that?
I mean, I think we all do it, in blog content and, titles of, emails. And it's just really a way to clarify, what you're going to get, align expectations. Somebody looking at that knows the value of what they're going to receive and the information they're going to get within that webinar. And of course, for us, it's always, if we've got a customer, we'll use those as often as we can.
Yeah, and the other good thing about that is people actually do stay to the end because of that fear of missing out. Points 4 and 5 might be the best 2. So if you're doing content like that, particularly rich media content, use that title. We're going to take a quick break. I'll do a Q&A with you in a moment. I'm going to bring Paul on next. But for now, could you have a huge round of applause for Barry and Kate? Thank you very much.